Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome everyone into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Everyone, welcome into the program. Today on the show, we have the one, the only, Mr. Nathan Evans. He is the managing editor over at Popzara.com. Check them out for all things pop culture, video games, really just go through their site. They have a podcast, movies, video games, books, hardware, software, just everything in between. They really cover it all, and they always have a great team over there putting out lots and lots of articles. Check them out, and of course, our segment here with Nathan on a monthly basis consists of talking about, current events and just, kind of what's going on with the world, trying to make sense of it the best way that we can. So everyone, of course, computeramerica.com, that's where you'll find everything, including past shows, future shows, including today's show. After it's done, we'll have the show notes compiled up there, and of course, we'll have links to everything, including Popzara.com. So, everyone just sit back, relax. We're going to have a very fun show today and a lot to talk about, including the fact that, let's face it, Nintendo casted the best cast that they possibly could for their upcoming movie. So, I think everyone's excited, to see that. But we have that story and a lot more to talk about. Everything from video game, movie casting to Chinese imperialism and the restriction of cryptocurrency. It's going to be fun. So everyone, computeramerica.com, social media links, all that good stuff. I hope you're having a great Friday and you are ready for some Computer America. So let's go ahead and bring on our guest. And as I said before, Nathan Evan, longtime correspondent for the show. He helps us with a lot of events, although obviously in the day and age of COVID, covering everything from the comfort of your sofa is very, very fun, just personally. But Nathan, welcome back onto Computer America. How you doing?
I'm just getting over a sore throat.
You're good.
So, real quick, I just want to share with the audience that I have a new laptop.
Nice.
I know. See, I'm never going to have kids, so this is like this is the approximate brag.
Well, congratulations. Does it bounce like a bouncing baby boy?
You know what? Let's go find out.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. No, it doesn't. No. Actually, if you're a Shel Silverstein fan, you got the joke. No, I was going to say it was a competition between you're going to be surprised. It was a competition between the 2020 MacBook Air. Mm-hmm. I thought about returning to Macland, and believe it or not, you're going to laugh when you hear this, the Acer Spin 5 convertible.
Oh, yeah?
And both from 2020, a little older. They met my requirements, both of them. They were under $1,000. Both had 3x2 or 16:10 aspect ratio, and they had enough juice to run what I need. And the competition was fierce, and I won't lie to you, the MacBook was awesomely fast. The M1 processor does everything Apple bragged about. But at the end of the day, I'm a Windows fan, and so that was my choice. So no disrespect to the MacBooks, and the M1 chip is a revelation. I think it's going to be great. But at the end of the day, I'm stuck in Windows land. So it's the Acer Spin 5.
Well, and obviously with Windows 11 right around the corner, you are, who knows if you will remain a Windows fan after something like that. But the Acer Spin 5, the Spin series of laptops, I've never really looked into, but it looks like they're one of those convertible, foldable, kind of halfway between a tablet and a computer, or at least they can serve the same function.
For me, though, the biggest draw was the 3x2 screen, which is really difficult to get in a sub $1,000 Ultrabook. When you don't care about gaming on the go.
You do have a weird fascination with resolution. That I will say.
I will say this: more and more people are joining the cult of the 3x2, and so as we progress, I think it'll eventually become the standard size. It already is on MacBooks. It's the standard size on Surface Books, on the new Dell XPSs. So join us, Ben. It's slightly larger and better.
Well, as someone who runs a website, really both of us, it's it's being pushed on us, especially to have everything formatted to be responsive. Responsive is the word, to form the content into whatever screen people are looking at. So when you say the standard, I mean, is that really going to happen, or isn't everything just hopefully going to work?
Well, here's the thing, though. I mean, at the end of the day, trying to get standards out of Silicon Valley is like trying to get gold out of turnips. Everybody thinks their way is the best. Like this, I've made jokes about it before, but you remember, it's the Linux people, my favorite people in the world. It's so easy. Just open up Terminal and just type in 50 pages of code. It's so simple. Yeah, no. No, for me, though, it comes down to visibility and real estate. And when you're doing documents in Photoshop and everything, a 3x2 just gives you a smidge more real estate up and down than it does left and right. And I can say for certain, I know we're gonna talk about Windows 11, but I'll say for certain, I literally just put Windows 11 on it today, and it runs beautifully. So it's completely compatible. And by the way, when we get to Windows 11, I was right. I called it, and I was right. Microsoft relented.
I look forward to what you mean by how you're right. So, and really with that little back and forth there, we have so many ways that we could take the different stories that we have lined up. And you were talking everything from standards, you were talking Windows 11, you were talking so many different ways. But hey, since you are our guest, I'll let you go ahead and decide where would you like to go.
Well, I mean, why not just keep the train rolling? Windows 11 comes out, October 5th? And I've been on the betas and the release channels for a while. You know me, I'm always living on the edge, literally. Although ironically, I don't use Edge browser, but
I do.
No, I've liked Windows 11, but I told you I think it's going to be contentious. I think it's going to be divisive among two groups of people. I think it's going to be divisive among gamers and among productivity people. And a lot of it has to do with things that you and I have sort of sparred over, which is the TPM requirements for the security protocols. Microsoft has already come out and said, we're kind of relaxing them, but you could install Windows on a non-compatible machine. You're just not going to be entitled to all the updates. Again, which is what I thought should happen. I mean, it's your computer. Although their verbiage is a little spooky, but at the end of the day, you should be able to install Windows 11 on virtually all machines that want to be installed on. I can't say for certain how it's going to run on your machine, but on my machines, it runs pretty good. Although I have not installed it to my main PC yet, just my laptop. My new laptop, by the way. So it's been running for about 6 months on an older laptop that I had to retire, and it ran pretty good too. There's some niggles that I don't like. There's some customization features that aren't included that I'm not a big fan of. But I would say overall, it's a visual paint job that's been long overcoming, and the synergy between a lot of the menus is there. And I know the story you and I are talking about is that you can upgrade to Windows 11 today if you want to. You don't have to wait till the 5th. There's a way to go about it by using the release channels where you can upgrade, then turn off the release channels, and you'll have Windows 11 today. I would say proceed with caution, as with all new upgrades, because there's going to be compatibility issues. But overall, I've been pleasantly happy with it. So.
Yep, just pulled up here, just trying to make sure there's no information I need to be concerned with. But yeah, the Windows Insider program looks to be, the way you kind of handle this. But Windows 11 was kind of promised as that, if it can run Windows 10, it can run Windows 11. But then in the same breath, they said, well, not everything can run Windows 11 because we're having hard cutoffs. And you said that they relented. And yeah,
they've relented slightly. So I think it's a compromise. So you know what? I said I was right. I'll say we were both right. How's that? Let's be diplomatic about it. We're both right, as we always are.
That's fair.
We're never wrong. So.
Yeah, exactly. Even when we have opposite views on this, but yeah, it's. I think that Apple and just the way that they run their whole operation, when they throw up a wall and they say, this is the end of Rosetta, this is the end of this, you have to update to this, to this version. Apple has set themselves up from the get-go to do that, but Microsoft, they would love to do that. They would love to cut development costs and cut team size and stuff like that. They will never really be able to do that with how many people are tied into their operating system.
You know what Microsoft is? The difference between Microsoft and Apple is a lot more than just hardware and software. It's literally the freedom they give you at the onset. So, for example, when I was testing the MacBook, the M1 MacBook, and everything ran so blisteringly fast. Photoshop, by the way, on the MacBook Air, booted up in 1 second. Yeah. 1 second. It was amazing. But the problem was that I kept coming across all these security features, like with keychain and everything, because you forget when you come from PC land that Apple locks everything down. And you also forget that people who live in Apple world are okay with this. They've made that choice. And so it's like visiting North Korea in some ways. It's like, wow, the streets sure are clean. I wonder, that's why it's clean. Yeah, slave labor. But what I'm saying is Microsoft trying to do what Apple does, it's like being an absentee parent for 18 years and then trying to buy your child's love. It's like you may get a little traction, but generally speaking, the milk's gone bad. And so
this wasn't the deal. And
yeah, exactly. You didn't say this.
Right. But Windows 11 being able to upgrade for free, that seems to be the latest deal between 8, 8, 10, and now 11. Microsoft's giving away this stuff for free, and hey, it's they're making it very hard for people to say, I don't want to upgrade it, I don't want to be on the same version. But those who do, they did relent, like you said, and hey, no, nothing other than like security updates, right? For a little while, and you can stay on Windows 10.
Yeah, and exactly. And who knows how they're going to relent tomorrow. I mean, at the end of the day, Microsoft makes virtually no real money with Windows as they do from their subscription services, right? Like Office 365 or I forget. It's not Office anymore. It's a Microsoft account or whatever. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if a Windows license is rolled into that at some point the way they've rolled everything else. It just makes sense because everybody makes more money with subscription. And honestly, for an operating system, it makes a lot more sense than to have continual service. But as far as relenting goes, no one's ever accused Windows of being the most secure operating system in the world. So the idea that you might encounter bugs, you might encounter hacking, you get that now with Windows 10. You get that now with everything, even iOS. I mean, there's always going to be some infiltration mechanisms. There's always going to be something because these are man-made products. And again, I may be oversimplifying it, and I apologize for all the security experts out there. But at the end of the day, Microsoft don't make any money if you don't upgrade. So they will make it easy, even if it means compromising a little bit at the onset.
And just over the last, I say, month or so, Apple has really been getting hit harder and harder at least in the headlines and, the sites that I kind of read about security leaks. I mean, there was one that, I wasn't planning on covering today. It was on the head of Ars Technica, I believe, where they were talking about 3 iOS 0 days revealed by researcher frustrated with Apple's bug bounty program. Ever since, Nathan, you might remember off the top of your head, it was some group out of Israel, the software company that was selling hacks to different governments.
The
NSO, I think.
Well, what's the name of the software that they had licensed?
I think it was NSO, and they were selling Freedom Software, whatever it was called. Yeah. But yeah, ever since that story, and I think really the media picking up on just how valuable Apple security flaws are, man, they've really run with that and just how prevalent they are. Like, it almost feels like it's almost evaporating a little bit. This idea that Apple is more secure, more locked down and safe. And it's just, no, Apple, by and large, Apple was always just a smaller target. But now they're a very valuable target. So
they're simultaneously a big target and a small target.
Yeah.
And the reason I think that these stories are getting traction has very, very little to do with the actual vulnerability of the Apple operating system, and has everything to do with optics. So you remember a couple of weeks ago when Apple announced that they were going to scan iPhones for child pornography.
Cover that extensively, yeah.
And on paper, you're like, wow, that's fantastic. The only people, right, this is how they do it, by the way. This is the trick. Here's a journalism lesson 101. Gather around. Professor Nate's going to educate. So... wow, this is so great. The only people who would hate this are child pornographers, because why else would you be against Apple scanning your products? Sounds good, right? No, people who know anything about security understand what a Trojan horse that would be, to allow a mainline software company to not only have access to all your files, but to catalog all your files. And what companies usually do is, under the auspices of child protection, the government does this all the time, they allow themselves to come in, and once they've established they can come in, they can do anything, and they can find anything. And again, you'd really have to go through a lot of hoops to find out how that could transform into something nefarious.
Right.
But that's really none of their business. And I think Apple's themselves have relented a little bit on this.
So yeah, and
this
I would love to kind of recap this whole story just a little bit, because I did cover this on past shows, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, whenever it was, more headline. But they were looking through your photos, and I guess the part that I always like to explain to people was that, much like the terrorists and shooters that happened in San Bernardino, back then, that's when Apple first really, one of the more recent cases where they stood up to the federal government and said, we don't have a way into our own phones, and we're not going to try to compromise our own products so that you can look through an admitted and capture terrorist phones. Now, the part that Apple did comply with, and they always will, and to this day, they handed over through warrant, court order, whatever, everything on Apple Cloud, like the iOS Cloud or whatever, like whatever server Apple physically owns, they hand over that data like immediately. They don't fight that whatsoever. They only fight what is stored on your phone's hard drive. And that's kind of what this led to as well. Like if you, like even right now, if you upload photos to the Apple Cloud and they are of a sensitive nature, they're scanning those photos today. It's because it's technically in Apple's ownership. It's on their servers. They are responsible for whatever is stored on their servers. But the part that changed with the story was that if it's on an individual's phone, that's where Apple kind of pushed that line a little bit and said, we're going to scan people's individual phones for these photos and images of, abused kids. That's the part I think people need to know. It's like Apple is more than willing to comply with scanning photos, and they do it even today. It's just, it's your phone, and that was a line they did not cross until this announcement.
Well, it would also give Apple jurisprudence to basically set up shop on your device as well. And I think that's what people, because at the end of the day, here's the thing. They're not just scanning the child pornography. In order to determine what is child pornography, they would have to scan all the files. And that's the part, because they would match them against existing hashes and image protocol.
They would encrypt, they would encrypt pretty much everything on your phone, and then they would compare the encrypted hashes with hashes on their server. And if anything matched or was too similar, then that would kind of escalate the situation until it reached an actual person who would be looking at your files. Like you, and I like the way that you put that at the beginning of this whole thing is. Through enough machinations, through enough hoop jumping, yes, it could lead to Apple looking through your phone or, kind of having free reign in your phone. Like right now, the way they have it set up, it would be a lot of hoops, but it does get the toe in the door.
Well, and again, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but the last 2 or 3 years, especially what's going on in Europe and Australia, particularly, that you're starting to see this encroachment of government into the personal lives of people in a way that would have been unthinkable 3 years ago. And I don't really want to open this box on this show right now because we could go into some very dark places.
We don't have time for Australia in particular.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Exactly. But you also see, though, it's like we're not talking about, if we're talking about Australia the way you and I are thinking, we're not talking about a North Korea. We're not talking about a China. We're talking about a democracy. And that's the problem. And because I know one of the stories we're going to talk about is also, well, China, for example. And China gets a lot of bad press, and they're deservedly so. But for example, we have two stories today, and I don't want to, you could choose either path. But you have one about the EU mandating what private companies, like connectors private companies can do, including Apple. And then you have another where you have an entire government banning a currency. And so, like, it's not like the idea of regulations controlling the private markets isn't just with communists or democracies. We're starting to see sort of the abridgment of choice happening on a consumer level in a way that, frankly, Ben, I never thought I would ever see. And it's like, who do I hate today? Who do I hate more?
I think
it's not so simple.
So, China, we will probably get to China cryptocurrency, all that good stuff. But because we have been, kind of tiptoeing around Apple and talking about, other Apple things, let's just jump right into this USB-C mandate from the European Union, because that does affect Apple in particular, because a lot of, most other companies have since switched over to USB Type-C. You were talking about trying to get standardization out of Silicon Valley. Trying to get standardization across the world is very, very hard to do. But I think a lot of people did rally behind USB Type-C, except Apple, who said, you know what? I still think FireWire can come back. We just have to figure out how to bring it back.
Well, that's the thing, though. Apple has adopted USB-C on their MacBooks. They've adopted it on their iPad Pros.
They have.
But they just haven't adopted it on their phones. And by the way, Amazon is about to adopt USB-C on their Kindles with the release of the new Kindle Paperwhite next month. Like the new versions of the Kindles, which are a 6.8 screen, are going to have USB-C. And I think this is fantastic because I have like 20 of the damn cables in my house that I never use. And that's what I want to use more devices. But no, it is very interesting to me. And that's another reason I took back the MacBook. And I'm sorry, Apple fans, but you need to hear this. Apple's crazy because they make all these cool devices and they don't make any of the cables compatible. For example, you have an iPhone. You buy an iPhone, you get Lightning earbuds. The Lightning earbuds are only usable on your phone. They're not usable on the MacBook you may have. So you have to get then you have to get 3.5 headphones, which are not compatible on your iPhone, but they will sell you Beats headphones that do have the 3.5. It's really Apple that has been resistant to the total USB-C change. And I feel if Apple had adopted the format 2-3 years ago, this would be a non-issue. I think it would have sped the conversion rate up 100%.
Right. And of course, Apple, I think the part that really gets me is that Apple has been trying so hard to define itself separate from everyone else, because everyone with Windows holds the operating system to a certain standard. There's certain transfer protocols. There's certain, connectivity you have to have with the motherboard, all that kind of stuff. Like the hardware is set. You need to have so many PCIe lanes. You need to have so much connectivity, so many USB-C, blah, blah, blah. Now, with that being said, Apple, they make their own hardware. They started making their own silicon. They started making pretty much everything. And they thought, and you've said it on the show before, like Apple thinks it knows better than everyone else, and when they create everything themselves, they're going to have internally different standards than other people, because I'm sure that Apple did not want their engineers or designers going in there and thinking, what are other people doing? Can we just adapt that for ourselves? And that's why you start getting all these different crazy adapters. And like you said, it's you have like wireless charging, USB-C, Lightning connectors, so on and so forth. Like there's a reason why it's a joke among people that, you could buy a MacBook Air, an iPhone, and an
iPad.
And an iPad, and none of them have cables that connect to each other.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's
it's funny. Apple gets 75% of the blame, but the 25% of the other blame goes to Intel, because you remember Apple and Intel had a pact to create Thunderbolt years ago, And Apple, and for whatever reason, Apple kept the technology solely in Apple land. And eventually, Thunderbolt started trickling off. But the problem was, and honestly, all these people should go to Silicon Valley hell for doing this. But they decided in their wisdom, they had this really cool connector called USB-C, which clearly was the future at the time. It was basically the more compatible Lightning cable, reversible cable. It was great. But the problem is that they decided in their infinite wisdom to make USB Type-C also the same port for Thunderbolt. And that created massive confusion between user bases. So now you have people out there who think they may have a USB-C, who think they may have Thunderbolt. And the reason this comes into play is because as Thunderbolt comes to more and more laptops, people are confused about the protocol it is. And they're also confused about the capabilities it has. For example, your little slim Ultrabook that may or may not use an external GPU doesn't work on USB-C. Or how about, does your USB Type-C provide display out? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Maybe it needs power, maybe it doesn't. How about those? Or how about this? Power cables. Is it a power cable? We don't know. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. The cables are the same. The ports are the same. The cables are different. And I think that's created a lot of unnecessary confusion in the adoption market. It's not fun.
Yeah, no, and I do think that standardization when it comes to connectivity, because even right here on my desk, I'm looking at 3.5 millimeter jacks and USB Type A.
Look at that mess. Look at that big mess.
It's awful. It really is. But no, I'm actually all for this whole European Union kind of mandating this thing, and it's also and like really one of the biggest arguments out there is something that we have not talked about, and I'm curious if you think it's that. Well, I think most people think it is. Environmental impact. Like, this is what led to all the conversations about Apple not including charging cables in their latest phones, and I think a lot of other phone companies started to do that as well by not including power bricks and things like that in their phones. I mean, the environmental impact, like, this is almost like a win-win, and it's been said before that they get to not include a product and make things even less accessible for people, and they get to look good because they're saving the environment. Like, they pay less, do less, and win the hearts and minds.
Can I tell you something? And this is going to be controversial, so you might want to cover your ears, people. It's crap like this why there are climate change skeptics, because people look at this nonsense and they think they're promoting uniformity out of climate change. Stop and come and get me when they ban hair products. Come and get me when they actually do something that's destructive to the environment. But they waste all this time on nonsense like this. And if you think about this, though, they're all this kerfuffle over USB-C. Okay, look at game consoles. Does your Switch controller plug into your Xbox? For the most part, not necessarily. Are there protocols that are the same between a PC and a Mac? Not necessarily. They just pick and choose about what needs to be uniform. They pick and choose. There's absolutely no consistency in their arguments. There's clearly some lobbying going behind what's going on.
Of course.
And that's fine. I'm totally cool on corruption. If you want to be corrupt, that's totally cool. I'll even join the fun. But when they do it and they say it's for your benefit, that's a problem, because piggybacked along somewhere along the way, something's not right. It doesn't smell right. Like I said, I love USB-C. I don't want child pornography for my phone. See, they sound great. Oh, it's for you. We're doing it for your benefit. But what's the catch? Because if it was that manifestly positive, you wouldn't need to mandate it like this. That's the problem. Nobody, do you remember the quote from Steve Jobs when he was being interviewed on All Things D years and years and years ago? It's my favorite quote from Steve Jobs. And
which one?
People asked about the iPad. And he's like, and I forget the context, but he basically said, you know what? If people want it, they'll buy it. And if they don't, they won't. And Steve Jobs is saying this like he's trying to explain why plants need water. Like, to Steve Jobs, it was so obvious about why the iPad was popular. But to have to explain this to somebody, and that's the way it is with USB-C. People love USB-C. People love the damn thing. They really like it because nobody likes USB micro USB.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever tried putting a micro USB in devices? It literally causes corrosion and it breaks. They break all the time. Screw those things. USB-C is so much better.
I think one of the times I used it, I actually did just snap it off completely, but that could have just been a faulty cable.
It feels fragile, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It feels like you're going to break it.
Yeah.
But
and so I think that and from reports I've heard, obviously this generation of iPhone is not going to be included, so iPhone 13, but 2024 I guess is kind of the deadline. I mean, honestly, I know that it weirdly is a topic that comes up here often on the show because of the types of guests we have, transfer protocols and, the difference between HDMI 2.1 and,
so
display port.
And they look the same. The cables look the same. That's the deceptive part.
But they do different things, and standards are great. But I hope that Apple embraces it because, I really do hope for a day when all cables just kind of work with all things. And
well, you know what's funny though? Can I say something?
What's that?
Look at the 3.5 jack.
Mm-hmm.
The 3.5 millimeter jack is a jack that has been around for 40 years, right? But that
it's
same
so
particular jack
dated. How dare it exist?
But you know what though? But they've been able to completely change that port over the decades to do different things. Sometimes, for example, some 3.5 jacks are stereo, some are monorail, some offer two-way communication, some offer one-way communication, some offer split on your PC, some don't. But this magical port, which fits into nearly virtually every device made before 2 years ago, is so universal and so beloved that when they tried to get rid of it, there was holleration to get it back. And I thought to myself, well, this is interesting. And this is my point. So you have the populace that's holding back innovation in one way.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to give up my 3.5 jack. I totally get it. But then you have the EU, for example, mandating that a port must be universal.
Standard. Yeah.
So on one hand, it sounds good, but what does that mean for future innovation if the government can now mandate your standards? That's a problem because, no offense, I'm looking at the EU. I don't look to the EU or the United States to innovate anything. I look to individual companies. And as much as I may hate Apple for going their own way, it's Apple going their own way which gets us to the innovation sometimes. No one ever said innovation needs more government interference. Nobody ever said that except China. So all I'm saying is it's that you have to take the good with the bad, but I'm going to be optimistic on standardization, but I'm also going to be very, very cautiously cynical on the idea that this is going to lead to further innovation in port structure. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, there's a lot of innovation happening, not by companies or government, but actual research places as well that are, that will inevitably sell their patents to a company who will then implement it. But yeah,
exactly.
There are different avenues. It's just starting with USB-C, it's trying to tackle a different problem by a different solution. So, speaking of governments mandating things and everyone just having to suck it up and deal with it. Let's talk about China real quick.
We have China again.
Yeah, we have talked about cryptocurrency. We've talked about China in the whole cryptocurrency space. So just a quick timeline for people. A couple of months ago, they banned individual provinces from mining cryptocurrency. They actually broke up a lot of the large-scale mining rigs. And when I say large scale, I mean about what was it, 50% of all cryptocurrency mining happened in different provinces of China. They had entire hydroelectric dams. They had entire coal-fired plants, all dedicated to not individuals, people, homes, ACs, or anything, but to strictly mining rigs to mine cryptocurrency. This was a very big deal. And then they broke them up. They said, you can't do this anymore. And then China said it is illegal to own cryptocurrency. So you can't mine it, and then you couldn't own it. And now today's big news is that you can't have, or you can't do any transactions, because I guess people were, I don't know if they were getting around the rules by saying, oh no, I don't own any cryptocurrency. I was just using it. There's a difference there. But China has put their foot down even harder, even though this is like, Nathan, if cryptocurrency had a neck, the boot would already be almost on the ground. This is them just saying, okay,
this is surprising.
It's all banned.
Actually surprising. I'm not a big fan of cryptocurrency only because I don't understand it. That being, I don't mean that in I'm ignorant of it. Is that I am someone, there's an ATM up the street for me that takes Bitcoin. I'm starting to see Bitcoin. I'm starting to see the different currencies be accepted. I just don't want any part of it right now.
Mm-hmm.
The same way, for example, if you told me that I could freeze my head and wake up in 100 years, I don't want any part of it. Now, when it gets really cheap, I'll think about it. But here's the thing, though, about China. They've been signaling some very interesting repressive measures the last couple of months. A lot of the consumer stories get to is, for example, let's ban effeminate men. Let's ban children under 18 playing video games. And we all cry about this.
That did happen since you were last on. That's right. The restriction of social media and video games to certain time limits and time windows.
But you know what? We've talked about this on this very show, and I was very cautious when I told you this, that China is very different. China is basically Apple in some respect, is that China was able to take a third world, like rotting economy and transform it by being repressive. So the people that went from mud huts to living in condos understand that the process that got them there was the same process that runs modern China. Like, just go along with it, just do whatever they say. It's for our betterment, like USB-C. No, but what's happening though? A lot of people who were big on cryptocurrency years ago thought that China might actually be the first country to adopt cryptocurrency as a bid for the yuan to replace the dollar.
And that's then really what El Salvador swooped in. Yeah,
didn't happen. But something's going on with China, and I'm not much of a sinologist where I can actually predict what's happening. But if I had to play the tarot cards, I would say that all indications are pointing to China trying to create a world economy to, like I said, replace the dollar as the standard. And they're not going to do that with having competing currencies. And the thing about China, though, is that China can do something that no other country can do. They can flip a switch and turn you off. Yeah. And the reason they've done this is because they've standardized everything. And if I can just be 10% tinfoil hat real quick. I hope you don't interpret what I'm about to say as being anti-vaccination, because it's not that at all. Please get vaccinated. But what I am saying is that you can understand a little bit when people are hesitant to do like vaccine passports. It's because they understand what's happening in China, is that China has standardized all of it, every single piece of information, that you have your driver's license, you have your passport, you have your social media, you have everything in WeChat. Everything is completely consolidated. For example, on iOS 15, you can put your driver's license in your iPhone. Look at that. Well, look at that. And that just comes at the same time with system-to-system encryption. But in China, they've been doing this for years. And once China has all the goodies in one wallet, they can literally decide your credit score, whether you can rent a car,
your social credit score, yeah,
everything. And you starting to hear that a little bit with people with vaccine passports. Like, oh, you don't have the proper paper. You're not going to shop in our shop. You're not going to be allowed to fly. You're not going to be allowed to do this because you don't meet the citizenship requirements. And so what's happening in China is so evocative that people outside of China recognize the slippery slope. And again, I don't want that to be interpreted as anti-vaccination, but because China has control of everything, they can easily do this, and there's no resistance. There's nothing anybody can do about it. There's no pockets of resistance in China. I want to be clear about this. And the people in China, by and large, accept this. They accept this. And a lot of Americans say it's brainwashing. It's not brainwashing. It's not brainwashing. China has kept the country running smoothly, and they feel this is the transactional price you have to pay for it.
Yeah, it's I wouldn't say brainwashing. It's different philosophies, and obviously and I believe the exact phrase I used with you on the show before is that there's a culture war going on with China. China has a culture war that they've even been waging since you were last on the show as well. I think they banned K-pop as well, so you can throw K-pop in there.
That goes into the ostenses of effeminacy, and there's a word that China has. I forget. It's like baizao. It's the same way Americans see the word otaku, and or I forget the Japanese term. It means vegetarian male. It's the idea that when you say otaku or you say incel, it conjures up these concepts of sexless nerd like loners that are can be potentially radicalized. And in China, they recognize this, and they actually use the Western male archetype as cautionary tales to say, well, you don't want us becoming like that. You don't want us becoming 300 pounds and living in a basement. And it scares China. And that's how they justify it. They literally are using the same psychological techniques that we use on them. In the 1950s in America, when someone wouldn't eat, parents would say, well, they're starving people in China. You don't want to be like that.
Yeah.
And now the Chinese are saying, you don't want to be like those overweight, sick Americans. Look at that. And it's fascinating. It's really fascinating.
They also, along with the whole K-pop thing, they were also, and it was a really good insight into this psychology that you're talking about, that came directly from the government of China that said, I think they shut down fan pages for K-pop because one in particular, I think some K-pop star was turning 23 or something like that, and his fans started a GoFundMe, or whatever the version of GoFundMe on WeChat is, to raise money to redo a personal plane so that he could, kind of have a personalized plane for his birthday. Now, clearly, a group of fans, and I don't know how much money it actually raised, but China highlighted a very, I would say, extreme example of people donating money to, to essentially idols, to very popular rich people, star chasing, clout chasing, like whatever the term the Chinese government used, and said, you guys are dumb. Essentially, is what they said. This is dumb behavior. Stop it. We're banning this kind of behavior. And just like you said, like to a Western philosophy for European, American, whatever, for your government to come forward and say what you like is dumb. To an American, especially, hey, we're on Computer America. To an American hearing,
we'll be
that's
as
none
dumb
of
as
your
we want. We'll be
exactly.
as dumb
That's
as we
none
want.
of your business. We are as dumb as we please. And to a Chinese person hearing that, they go, well, they're probably right. And it's a very different psychology that both countries employ.
And if I can just bring another difference real quick, and again, this is not to be anti-American, but to my point, you have American politicians that are antagonistic towards Bitcoin. Specifically, the most popular one, of course, is the senator from Massachusetts, Elizabeth Warren, who's been very vocal about shutting down server farms in America. But her argument, as always, is about climate change. And it's not a very effective argument. And that's the problem, is that you have people who are trying to decide the future of currencies, and the people that are doing it are not explaining in a way of why we should be so resistive to new currencies, because they do threaten centralized control. In China, for example, in America, for example, if a bank has to report, I think it's $10,000 when you transfer.
Yes.
Is it 10,000? So, but in China, they report everything. Yep. Everything is tracked. And if you have a third-party billing service, third-party billing currency like Bitcoin, you can't do that. And so it must be stopped. And this is what it's really about. And it's not a conspiracy theory to say that. This is.
I definitely do think it is about control. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And you also see this happening in America. And I think, again, the slippery slope where you have digital payment systems like PayPal and you have MasterCard that have taken political stances that have deplatformed people not because they've committed crimes, not because they've been charged with felonies or committed acts against the state, but because they may hold an opinion that's not proper. And as someone I'm not a libertarian, but as someone who's very independent in my political thought, I find that terrifying the same way I find the Chinese version terrifying, is that it's not something that I'm proud of. And I think,
yeah.
Well, no, I never thought I would see that in my lifetime. That sort of, I don't want to call it censorship, because both conservatives
Nathan,
and
you are so young. You are going to see so much in your lifetime. You must expand your horizons. You're going to see everything in your lifetime.
Well, I'll say this. I've seen enough. And I just never, like I said, the conservatives and the liberals are actually on the same page on this, so that they think, well, a private company should do whatever they want. And you know how I feel. You and I have talked about this before, is that yes, a private company should do what they want. But when the services those private companies offer are required to exist in the culture, then there should be some sort of protections, the same way we protect like different ethnicities and religions and genders and sexualities from discrimination. There should be some sort of protection that if you're going to invest in a social media platform, or if you're going to invest in a monetary platform, that there should be some consumer protections for you. And that's why I could never be like a conservative, because they would be against that. But I think so. And I think as long as America is considered a fiscally responsible, independent country, then we should protect our citizens from this. Otherwise, look at China. They have no problem just saying, we don't like what you're doing. Goodbye. And they can get rid of you. Look, we all want to get rid of K-pop. We all want to get rid of K-pop. Okay,
I don't hate K-pop, but it seems like music from the '90s, but taken to the nth degree. Like it is, like just the pure choreography that goes into the music videos and stuff. I don't know.
You're gonna get the hives coming for you. They're coming.
I'm not for it, but I'm definitely not against it. But no. So what I want to say was the only thing that I want to pick a little bone with you here is the whole environmental impact of cryptocurrency. And
I know it's big. It's substantial. Of course it is.
But and NFTs as well, by the way, and NFTs as well.
Well, NFT is useless in every way, shape, or form. The ecological disaster is secondary just to the annoyances of NFTs. I don't think
NFTs are useless. I think they're a straight up scam perpetrated by by a few big players who are ripping off a lot of people.
They very much are the commemorative plates of the digital world. Those commemorative plates you purchased are never going to be worth anything except garbage. Sorry, I think we agree. I think we agree on NFTs. They're both scammy.
Yeah, they certainly are. I mean, there was an article the other day about someone who worked for the company who actually bought them before highlighting them and then sold them after they were highlighted for a quick profit. I mean,
that sounds illegal.
Oh, it very much is. And well, actually it's not, because NFTs are not classified by any Securities Exchange Commission, blah, blah, blah standard.
Martha Stewart went to prison for less.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. And, but she's a hardened criminal. I mean, she was guilty. So, you do as you do.
She is a felon.
Yeah. It's that's why she has so many ends with other hardened criminals. But no, nice lady, I'm sure. Love to talk to her. So China banning cryptocurrency again. Like if anyone has been following China and cryptocurrency in their relationship, especially the dismantling and essentially persecution of cryptocurrency miners and owners, there's a reason why 1.3 billion people just lost access to cryptocurrency and the market fell like 8%. It's because this was obvious. Like this was definitely coming.
You know what the funny thing about China, the final thought, is that one of the biggest reasons why China gets away with something like this, and this is really, really difficult for the West to understand, is that China offers alternatives to everything. Like in the United States, because of our reliance on capitalism and foreign production. Mm-hmm. For example, you can go to Walmart and you could buy 20 plastic cups for $1, or you can buy 20 forks for 50 cents. You go to Dollar Tree. There's so much stuff, but 99% of that stuff is made in China. In China, they don't buy American goods. No one's clamoring for that. And one of the last holdovers was American films, and China themselves have basically disobviated that. They don't need American films anymore. So China can literally produce what they need by themselves. The only thing they don't have are minerals and production qualities, which is why there's so much investment in Africa. And the African what's the word I'm looking for? The continent is so rich for basically colonization 2.0 that I think that as we progress into the next century, I'm serious here. I think
that England is brushing off its boots. Yes.
He's like, well, we'll show them how it's done, boys. No, but we all know this, by the way. There's nothing unknown how much China's investing, and they're also going to invest in the Middle East. Like they don't need America anymore. They literally don't. They don't need Britain. They don't need that. We're not equal trading partners. They can make their own stuff, and that's very dangerous.
Yeah,
as far as like imbalance of trade goes,
including things like the internet. I've long said this, that there are two internets. I don't know if people know this, but there are two internets. One of them is kind of the one that we all use, and that we can distribute whatever we want, so on and so forth, by and large. And then there's and I'm not talking about the dark web, and then there's the Chinese internet, which uses services that you've never heard about, which have social media sites with twice the users of any social media a site you've ever used.
Yeah.
It's shopping sites that do everything from home loans to home goods to everything. Like, there are two internets, and China is a world onto itself, and it's trying to expand, just like you said, into Africa and other places.
Here's the thing, man. China does very well without Google, and they do very well without Apple, and they do very well without eBay. They do very well without Amazon. They have their own. They have Alibaba. They have WeChat. They have services with user bases that dwarf anything we have here.
They do.
If WeChat woke up tomorrow with 4 times the user base of Twitter, they would kill themselves, because it's nothing. There would be no reach. Right. And that's the thing. That's what's happening in China. And again, I've said this before. The West does not understand China. They criticize it. They throw names at it. They vilify it. But that's not what's happening. And I would recommend everybody. And can I offer the listeners one final thing?
One last one.
If you want to see a taste of this, don't use Chrome browser, or use Firefox or use something else, and do a search using Google.
Are you about to say Tank Man, Tiananmen Square, all that good stuff?
No. I'm saying now on anything today, on anything. Look up anything. Look up cucumber rice if you want. Okay. And look up, cauliflower rice. But do a search on Google and then do the exact same search on Bing or DuckDuckGo. And just the imbalance between the 3 major search engines is such that you have to remember what you said about China. In China, none of them would be allowed. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, the influence and balance is so dramatically different, even within our own country. I mean, how can you compete with that? There's no uniformity. There's no uniformity whatsoever, even on a search engine. We're primitive compared to what they have. As far as the control goes, that's what I'm saying. The control. Yeah.
Yep. And of course, there's a lot to be said about innovation. By the way, I just tried this, Google and then Bing. Funny story. Like, man, Bing pulled up infinitely more YouTube videos than Google did, which you think would be opposite, obviously, because Google and Google, YouTube, all that good stuff. But yeah, I guess Bing is at least they weren't exactly the same, so you have that to be thankful for. All right, so cauliflower rice, get out of here. Don't even like this stuff.
Thank you.
Okay,
no, it's not very good.
Yep. So there's that story, and we have covered different topics here on the show about everything from social credit system to cryptocurrency to a lot of different aspects about China. And Nathan, you're right. Like, I feel like I've read a decent amount about China, and because I don't live there, because I don't live the lifestyle and experience the ecosystems that they exist in, I feel like I will never understand that viewpoint that they have. But yeah, that's something that is going to come to a reckoning one way or another. Either the Chinese people feel restrictive and they're going to break out of it, or China is going to expand their influence ever so slightly more and more and more until they engulf the other. Like, it's going to end up that way. It really does feel like it.
I honestly don't know. I'm not a pessimist, but I caution everybody who understands how propaganda works. And right now we're in the middle of a propaganda war.
Absolutely.
Only because the players involved are themselves in the middle of a proxy war. And so we'll see what happens. I mean, as long as things are cheap and easy, as long as I get my Avengers Part 5.
So, okay. So there's 2 stories here. I want to cover both. One of them is kind of ridiculous. Actually, 3 stories I really want to cover. So Nathan, we have like 5 minutes. We have to be quick.
Let's go.
This first one, because I want to give you more time on stories that I think you're actually going to go off on. The first one is the story that I sent you about a teenager on TikTok. And speaking of Chinese influence in ecospheres and things like that, TikTok. Well, it's very, very influential, especially when you have communities that are much smaller. One of them is this Sarah N. Dom. She made a video about her side hustles, essentially ways to make money on the side, which, hey, we're in a pandemic. People are losing jobs. People are looking for work, and a little bit more money never hurts. She recommended a website, prolific.co, which is basically fill out surveys and you get paid to take the surveys. Nathan, this was, I'm sure, kind kind of not really hush-hush, probably more pushed towards, different communities, trying to get a good sample size from, for scientists. Essentially, it's for researchers and behavioralists to get a good sample size, put up a survey, say, I'm looking for 300 people, take the survey so I can get some data so I can start coming up with an idea. And this one woman with many, many followers, and by the way, now has about 1 billion views on this one video alone, showed what she was doing, and then researchers had tweets such as this. Sorry, I wasn't showing the screen here. Here's the video. You can see it there, kind of explaining it. And then had tweets such as this one down here, where a researcher was looking at research data for a 300-person study and found that 91% of the respondents were female, and the majority were around 21 years old. Essentially, screwed up the entire site for who knows how long. I don't know if this business model can prevail, Nathan, if you're looking for a general population survey and it's 80% flooded with young white women. So I thought that was funny. There's not really much more to it. I just thought pretty funny.
It's just like all the protest march. But I mean, this is what did they expect would happen? I mean, when you look at the virality of anything, I mean, the vast majority of dedicated followers online are female, and this might be controversial to say, but there's a lot of evidence that they're mostly white. And so what happens is you have basically a version of what you would used to call white savior complex, versus the idea of altruistic. What is it called? Narcissistic altruism, the idea that you can save everybody. And when you combine that with the power to create and promote audiences with things like TikTok, you're going to have these disparate groups. It happens everywhere in every industry. Like the vast majority of people who helped make the Kardashians rich and famous were women. The vast majority who follow esports are men. I mean, you're going to have different demographics for different things. I will say this, though, is that women excel at this sort of thing. Women excel at two things: one, scientific studies, and two, groupthink. And so when you have this imbalance, let's go back to China, for example. Like I can tie this together. 40 years ago, when China instituted the one-child policy, right? The idea is that every family would have one. However, what was happening is that families were seeing an imbalance of male and female, so it resulted in female infanticide. 30 years later, China has a gender imbalance where it's like 2 to 1 for men.
Yeah.
And then you look at, and a story the other day talked about college applicants are overwhelmingly female to male. This is the result of what happens when you show biased gender preferences on something. And as far as the survey goes, I think this is great. This is like the Ron Paul things all over again. It's that you're not getting a sample, you're getting a biased sample. I assume that the vast majority of followers to this woman on TikTok are female, very much like her.
Yeah.
And so if you guide a 90% female fan base to take studies, then you're going to have a gender imbalance.
Yeah. And again, it was just kind of an aside, and I thought, being Friday, we could be a little silly. Clearly,
it's very funny.
Yeah. I'm sure the service will eventually die off. Trends and fads or all that kind of thing. So there's that story. Nathan, we have like 3 minutes, so I want you to be quick with these.
Yes.
Actually, last story. Take as much time as you can. Chris Pratt. What do you think of when you think Chris Pratt? Please. Italian plumber. Good answer.
Well, no one thought Bob Hoskins was going to be a good Italian plumber either. But you're talking about the new. Okay, you mentioned this in the beginning that Nintendo had a gigantic press treehouse yesterday. I'll say this, pretty good one too. Like better than E3.
I didn't watch it, but
cool
that's
stuff
good.
Got showed.
Yeah.
No, I saw the highlights. The movie's coming out. A lot of people are excited about the Super Mario movie from Illumination, the company who made. What did they make? The Lego? Did they animate the Lego movie? I know they made the Grinch. They made a bunch of stuff. You've probably seen them. Despicable Me, very, very popular. Chris Pratt is popular, and who's the woman's name? She is Anya Taylor-Joy.
Anya Taylor-Joy. Yeah.
Yeah, she's gonna play Peach. She looks like an alien. She's on that show, The Queen's Gambit. She's really pretty. She's really skinny, but she looks like a CG. She doesn't. They could just put her in the animated movie, and she'd fit right in. She looks rendered.
She has very exaggerated features, which, you know, obviously would be conventionally attractive, you know, very symmetrical, very angular features, all that good stuff. Very good looking, very good looking. So, all that being said, this isn't going to be live action though, right? This is going to be animated and voiced. Yeah.
By the way, Charlie Day as Luigi is inspired, but Jack Black as Bowser is very, very funny.
Jack Black as Bowser will be amazing, definitely.
Yeah. You know who played Bowser in the live action movie? It was Dennis Hopper. Dennis Hopper played Bowser in the live action Super Mario Brothers. Not making that up. In
1993, a little bit before my time. So, when was the last time Nintendo actually, you know, kind of,
1993. Actually, no.
I'm trying to think, when was the last time they kind of went into cinema? It's been a while.
Pokemon. Detective Pikachu was a huge hit, but before that it was the Pokemon. No, the Super Mario Brothers movie got them out of the business for almost 30 years.
Yeah. So hey, now they're roaring back, and honestly, I'm all for Nintendo and movies. I feel like it was always a match made in heaven.
I'm optimistic. We'll see how it goes.
Yep, absolutely. So everyone, definitely check out the rest of the cast. You can see that there. December 21st, 2022 is when they will release this film. So it's already you know, in planning. Nathan, yep, definitely popzara.com. If you head on over there, you can see tons of different things. Your editors have been, or your writers have been hard at work. You know, everything from game review, podcasts, you know, just everything and anything. Nathan, thank you so much. And hey, I hope you have a great weekend.
Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
All right, everyone. Once again, computeramerica.com in the show notes, link to everything. Have a great one. Bye, everyone.
Bye.